My friend motivated me to make this video, and he also went ahead and made the thumbnail for me. So shout out to Tim. His socials will be down in the description below. Very productive man. I recommend that you follow him. But all right, how to stop doing the things you hate. This is basically the bane of ADHD existence. In fact, you can describe most mental disorders as conditions where people are constantly doing things that they don't actually really want to be doing. And so when you live with ADHD, you spend the majority of your life doing things that you actually don't want to do. And so that's actually key number one, is just becoming aware of the fact that you are not living your life actually in line, doing what you actually want to do. There's very few people who actually do whatever they want, at least sort of in the basic way that we think about it. This is what you need to realize, though, is you already do whatever you want. And the reality is that we actually want to suppress what we want more than we actually want what we think we want. Ain't that messed up? I'm going to say that one more time. We actually want to live a life not doing what we want more than we want what we think we want. And that is why you don't get what you want. And that is why you can't stop doing things that you hate. It's because you're convinced that you hate them. But the reality is you don't hate them, otherwise you wouldn't be doing them. What's actually going on is that you have an ego narrative of, oh, I can't be like this because I'm supposed to be a good person. And what good means to you is going to be different depending on the ego or the self-image that you desire. However, we stress this so much, like we get so caught up in this loop that we actually convince ourselves that we don't like these things. And really what's happening is you have one part of you that does like whatever it is you're doing, and you have another part which does not like whatever it is you're doing. And this part of you that likes what you're doing is actually the real you. And this other part of you is basically a mask, or what we would consider like your ego. It's your sense of self as it relates to your identity instead of your being. Obviously, a lot of addiction exists as a pattern within you, but what I find is that the body is not really the cause of addiction, and it's not even the main perpetuator of it. It's more just the vehicle. It's like the tires on the car that allow the car to roll and move forward, but it's not the engine. The engine is actually this split between who you really are and your ego. Because when you do things that you don't want to, we know that what we're really doing is we are numbing ourselves, which is avoidant behavior. Really what's going on is that this part of you just doesn't like the real you. And so you're playing pretend and having this internal battle and squabble, this internal power struggle of back and forth and back and forth. This is so draining. This is so utterly exhausting. It would be so much better for you to just acknowledge that you are a bad person, and then immediately after acknowledge, well, at least I'm good enough to acknowledge that, and I can also acknowledge that a part of me does want something better. So this is a reality for a lot of people who are addicted. In fact, I read a book when I was younger called Teenage Degenerate, about a guy who was addicted to methamphetamine. And spoiler alert, how the book ended was with him quitting his addiction to methamphetamine, and how he was able to do that. And a reality for a lot of people who have addictions is that one day it's like he just woke up and he was just done. He just didn't want it anymore. And so he walked out of his motel room and he just plopped it in the garbage and just rode off into the sunset. And he just never did it again. And he didn't want to. We think that when we do things we don't like scrolling on shorts, procrastinating, watching no videos on your web browser, or binge eating, or just whatever it may be, gaming for hours on end, these things come with a physical withdrawal, but that physical withdrawal is nothing. It's literally nothing. And what actually brings you back every time is you using the physical withdrawal as an excuse because you actually like it, but you won't acknowledge that you actually like it. And so you can never actually process through that and then which means that you can never actually grow because you're basically unwilling to look at the real problem. Because you're basically unwilling to ever actually look at the real problem, which these things always have a root cause. And that is what people who, talk to you about getting over addiction, that's what they'll tell you, is you need to find the root cause and cut that out or fix or heal that. But honestly, guys, what I find genuinely is that a huge part or like one of these root causes is just the fact that you like doing it. You like binge eating. You like watching no videos, you like procrastinating, you like gaming, you like having a triple wide monitor set up with 42 tabs of shorts open simultaneously, you like arguing with people, like you just like all these things that you think that you don't like. Deep down, somewhere in your psyche, you enjoy them. And so what you actually need to do is open up the dialogue with that part of yourself by becoming non-judgmental of the things you do. Because the judgment is just making you spiral and it's making you hide in shame. It's like you're trying to cover up and, oh no, I'm so bad, I have to. And then that shame, that bad feeling basically makes you run back to it to cope or to avoid the shame, essentially, because you're trying to numb yourself, remember? And so really, you just have to stop being ashamed, like genuinely. But then also admit that you have a problem. Once you get to this point where you're not ashamed, but you know you have a problem, this is where things can improve. Now that you know you have a problem, the answer is still awareness. Notice how everything up until this point that I've been talking about is basically just awareness. Awareness is just the truth. This is how you actually beat an addiction, is you bring the truth to it by recognizing, okay, I actually do enjoy this, and I just need to stop being ashamed, and I just need to own that. And then you also need to look at everything this addiction is costing you, which, by the way, anything that you do that you don't like is an addiction. Like, don't be fooled. If you do anything that you don't like, that is literally primarily what an addiction is. It's something that you can't stop doing and you don't know why and you don't like it. And so when I say that, hopefully you realize you actually have a lot of addictions, and everybody does. But what works is just recognizing that, realizing that, and then basically overwhelming the addiction with the truth. You can think of the truth like a sword that sort of cuts through the addiction. Another way you can think about it is that an addiction is essentially darkness and truth is like the light. And when you bring the light into the darkness, literally what can the darkness do? It just has to leave. But because of this separation between who you really are and your ego, which by the way is a lie, which I would say is, darkness, you have to consistently bring the light of the truth there so that your ego stops protecting you from the truth. That's literally what your ego does. It protects you from the truth because the truth hurts. But I'll tell you what, accepting the truth is infinitely easier than struggling with an addiction and infinitely more profitable. And it actually doesn't really hurt that bad. Because the reality is there's really two types of pain. There's a pain that comes from exertion, but this is not that. When you become aware of the truth and it sucks, that pain is actually the false you or the ego getting hurt. Your ego's being hurt. And it's actually like fizzling away and diminishing. Darkness is going away. It knows that, and it doesn't like that. And so it's going to retaliate and it's going to fight back, but you just have to keep bringing the awareness and truth to it. You can't be numb while you're doing something bad. The main way that people are able to quit smoking is by just paying attention to the fact that cigarettes taste like garbage. People numb themselves with cigarettes because it provides some sort of stimulation. It's something to distract them. But really, it's not the cigarette that's distracting them. The cigarette is just a medium for you to distract yourself. You've already closed off your mind and made this ego barrier, and you're telling yourself, oh, I don't like smoking these cigarettes. I don't know why I'm doing it. It's like, yes. It's like, no, you're doing it because you like it. That is the only reason you would do it. Which, by the way, there is no such thing as ambitious but lazy. If you see that on YouTube, it's a lie. You are not ambitious but lazy. You are either ambitious or you are lazy. Or you are ambitious but struggling, which is honestly probably a lot of the people watching this video. Or you're not lazy, you're doing everything you can, it's just not really working very well. Booking link to my coaching down below. It's free right now until I get more reviews. So get it while you can. And so because you have ADHD, something we need to do, because you will forget, and because you have a poor ability to self-monitor and to actually see yourself clearly, that's one of the symptoms, is you need an environment that's going to reinforce the behavior that you want. We're also more sensitive to our environment than average people. We're more sensitive to outside input, which is why we get distracted easily. And so what really, really helps is friends that are going to remind you and encourage you and keep you on the path. And if you have friends that are dragging you down when you have ADHD, you just got to cut them out. And you don't have to cut them out entirely. You can basically sandbox them, and you can just be in contact with them less. And you can also do things like put up reminders. For me, what has helped is in the past when I was struggling with an addiction, I basically had a piece of paper that had all of the reasons, just an exhaustive list of all the reasons why I actually really don't want to engage with my addiction. Just all the reasons that I shouldn't. And so every time I went to go partake in the addiction, the rule was I could just freely enjoy it without shame at all. But I had to read that note first in its entirety, and I had to sit there and actually purposely be aware. And then if I decided to engage in the addiction, I had to purposely be aware the entire time. Yeah, no, it didn't last long. And so my challenge for you is to bring awareness to your addiction and to make one of these documents and to put it in a place where it makes sense, where you're going to actually run into it, not have to go fetch it or dig it up somewhere it's already going to be right in front of you. Because ADHD comes with object impermanence. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. But if it exists in your environment, oh, it's going to program you. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end of the video. That's one of the most important stats for YouTube. Go ahead, like and subscribe, share this with somebody who needs it. And just to really bring it into conscious awareness and to get rid of that shame, comment one thing that you've convinced yourself you don't like to do, but now you know you actually like to do it. And we'll all support each other in the comments down below. There's also helpful resources down in the description below. And go ahead and follow Tim. Props to him for getting me to make this video and for doing the thumbnail. But all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace.